Brexit news. Why has David Davis resigned? Why has Davis quit? Latest update. Brexit Secretary David Davis has resigned from Theresa May's cabinet following Friday's summit at Chequers, but what is the reason for his departure from the government? Why has David Davis resigned? David Davis has quit as Brexit Secretary following on from the cabinet plan agreed by Theresa May at Chequers on Friday. In his resignation letter, Mr. Davis criticised the Chequers agreement, and said it would leave the UK in a weak negotiating position at best. The Brexit Secretary said the current trend of policy and tactics was making it look less and less likely that Brexit would deliver on the referendum result and the Tory commitments to leave the EU customs and single markets. Mr. Davis said the general direction of policy will leave us in at best a weak negotiating position, and possibly an inescapable one. Mr. Davis's departure was just 48 hours after being part of the cabinet that agreed to Mrs. May's EU plans. His resignation also triggered the departure of departmental ally Steve Baker, while fellow Brexit Minister Suella Braverman is also reported to have stepped down. The Brexit Secretary was unpersuaded that the government's negotiating approach will not just lead to further demands for concessions from Brussels. In his resignation letter, he told the Prime Minister he would not be a reluctant conscript to her plan, which he said was certainly not returning control of our laws in any real sense. The Common Rulebook plan hands control of large swathes of our economy to the EU and is certainly not returning control of our laws in any real sense, he wrote to Mrs. May. He added, I am also unpersuaded that our negotiating approach will not just lead to further demands for concessions. In her reply, Mrs. May told him, I do not agree with your characterization of the policy we agreed on at Cabinet on Friday. She said, I am sorry that you have chosen to leave the government when we have already made so much progress toward delivering a smooth and successful Brexit and when we are only 8 months from the date set in law when the United Kingdom will leave the European Union. Jacob Rees-Mogg, leader of the pro-Brexit European Research Group faction, said the Prime Minister would be well advised to reconsider the Brexit vision she believed she had secured at Friday's cabinet summit at Chequers. He told BBC Radio 5 Live, these proposals will have to come to the House of Commons in legislation and the question is will they command support from Conservative MPs. And I think without David Davis there, without his imprimatur, it will be very difficult for them to get the support of Conservative MPs and therefore the Prime Minister would be well advised to reconsider them. Mr. Davis had come close to resigning before, but Mrs. May must have hoped the danger of cabinet resignations had passed after Friday's deal at her official country retreat. Mrs. May is expected to use a common statement to tell MPs that the strategy agreed on at Chequers is the right Brexit for Britain. In the Commons, Mrs. May will acknowledge that there have been robust views around the cabinet table and a spirited national debate since the 2016 referendum decision to leave the EU. She will say, over that time, I have listened to every possible idea and every possible version of Brexit. This is the right Brexit. She will tell MPs it was the Brexit that is in our national interest and will deliver on the democratic decision of the British people. The Prime Minister is expected to appoint a replacement for Mr. Davis on Monday.